On this episode of Laid Back History, we're talking about Francis LeMoyne, the Great Exhibition of 1851, and somehow we're going to tie that to Running of the Wolves. So I want to welcome you to another episode of Laid Back History. And this one is an interesting episode because this is something that kind of came as a surprise to me. And honestly, I didn't know anything about it until a few weeks ago. So we are going through, as we're getting ready for our move into our new building, we're going through and we're getting documents and things boxed properly for the move. And came across, as we're going through the LeMoyne Collection, we came across a document that I had not, I guess, paid attention to before, seen before, and it really caught my eye, and I want to talk a little bit about it. And so what this document is a document where Francis LeMoyne is being officially appointed part of the Pennsylvania Commission for exhibiting at the 1851 exhibition in the city of London, and it's dated January of 1851. So the Great Exhibition, let's start off with what they are. It's kind of like the predecessor to the World's Fair. Now, these exhibitions started in France in the late 18th century, and it was an exhibition on industry and culture, and it was originally for French industry and culture. Well, you start seeing other countries being involved with it. And after, I think it was an 1844 exhibition in France, the United Kingdom, Great Britain wanted to do the same thing. And so they decided in 1851 they were going to have this great exhibition. And it was called the Great Exhibition on Great Exhibition on Industry of All Nations. And it was basically set up to show off the developments, the inventions, the technologies, the industry of nations, and it wasn't just, industry as we think about it, but it was culture, that kind of thing, paintings, sculptures, there was a little bit of everything in it. India had wonderful tapestries that they displayed. But the idea is that the countries of the world would get together and show off what they could do. And so the United States wanted to be part of it, and they had figured they were going to have a wonderful turnout of American exhibitors wanting to be part of it. So they asked for a huge space in this new building that was being built. It was called the Crystal Palace. It was built just for this exhibition, and sometimes they actually called it the Crystal Palace Exhibition. Beautiful building that unfortunately burnt down later on in Hyde Park. It was in Hyde Park in London. And so they thought they'd have like all these exhibitors wanting to be part of it. And so Francis was asked to be part of the Pennsylvania Commission. And so this document here, this official document, is what is basically saying that, asking him to be, or not asking, really saying he's been appointed as part of this commission. So most countries, the government of that country supported these exhibitors and provided funding for these exhibitors. The United States did not do that. The Treasury did not donate any money towards the creation of these exhibits. And so you had a little bit of less of a turnout than what they expected. But these appointees, like Francis, it was their job to figure out what was going to be exhibited, what they wanted to really display and show in London from May till October of 1851. And so I'll talk about what his contributions here in a minute, but go back to the fair, or to the exhibition. And so, as I said, the United States didn't give any money towards it. And so basically, they had to, even the travel over to London for all these exhibits, the transport had to be donated. So it was donated, and they were transported on a boat called the Lawrence, I believe. And so the Lawrence gets all these things that are put together to be part of the American exhibit, the United States exhibit. It gets to London, and they don't even have enough money to unload all this and transport it to the Great Hall. Well, luckily there's a banker living in London, and his name's escaping me right now, but he is able to contribute $15,000 so that these exhibits could be unloaded, transported to the palace, and then assembled for the display. So think about that. I mean, our government did nothing. I mean, they went as far as appointing members of a committee, but they didn't really do anything. And so they get over there, and as I said, the Americans thought they'd have a big turnout, so they asked for a huge amount of space. But when they got there, they had this huge space. In fact, the only foreign country that had more space was France, and we ended up only using, I think it was a third or 2/3 of it. I guess it was 2/3 because it was a little over half. And it was so sparse that there was even a recommendation in one of the newspapers that they could take the other space and turn it into lodging for people, because there was so much space left. If they couldn't find lodging in a hotel or in an establishment in London, they could set up some lodging in the American space. To be fair, they eventually did put seating in for people that were foot-weary travelers, had been going around the exhibition and needed to sit down. So they did use some of the space for that. There were some incredible things exhibited there from the United States, though. And so even though it was very sparse, later on, you'll see newspaper articles kind of not praising the United States presence, but really giving in and saying, yes, they had some pretty amazing things. Probably first and foremost, they had the McCormick Reaper, and it was said that it was the greatest addition to agriculture since the scythe, so since the flail, that's what it was, since the flail, for what it could do, was a pretty incredible invention. And so there was one there, a full one set up, right in the middle of the American exhibit. And actually, it was not too far. They had this big eagle underneath, or eagle up there, kind of the centerpiece of the United States exhibit, and it sat underneath that. There was some sculpture there, not a whole lot. I think what was it called? The Greek slave, I think, was one of the ones that was there. So there was some sculptures there, but they had the McCormick Reaper, and then the other big item that they had was an 1851 Colt Navy. So Colt had hundreds of firearms there. I mean, they took a ton, different varieties. They had special ones just for for the exhibition that were specially made and branded for the exhibition. But they debuted the 1851 Colt Navy. And the Colt Navy, which I should have brought mine. I actually have a reproduction of one. I should have brought it. It's a black powder pistol, and it was kind of an improvement over the previous Colts. And really, you won't see another major improvements in the Colt firearms until the 1860 Colt Army. But the Colt Navy was, gets its name. The idea was it was a little bit of a shorter barrel, and it could be carried by Navymen. But they had those there, and that received a lot of praise. So really, you're going to see the McCormick Reaper and then the Colt firearms really getting most of the praise. And then also you see Virginia Honey and Cincinnati Cinnamon also getting praised in the newspapers, the English newspapers at the time. But how does Francis LeMoyne fit into that? What did he do for the American exhibit as he was appointed on the committee? Well, his contribution was sheep. So Francis had helped introduce merino sheep here to southwestern Pennsylvania, where it had pretty much flourished. You start seeing the sheep industry by the 1820s, just booming in southwestern Pennsylvania, and it just continues to grow through the 1830s, 40s, and in the 1850s. Some of the finest quality wool was coming here from, was coming from southwestern Pennsylvania and Washington County. And so Francis wanted to make sure that that was represented in the Pennsylvania portion of the exhibition. And so that's where he kind of comes into it. So he pushed to have the wool industry. In fact, he had started a sheep growers society as part of this. There had been several before that, but he started one specifically in Washington County around this 1851 exhibition, so that they could push to have the sheep industry as part of it. And it made a big part of the Pennsylvania exhibits, or the Pennsylvania sponsored exhibits, which again, not really sponsored, just came from Pennsylvania. And so it was not only, the plan initially, I guess, was to take a few sheep over there, and then decided maybe against that might not have been the best thing. So they didn't take any sheep, but they took sheep pelts that had not been processed. They took the entire pelt, butchered the sheep and took the pelt. Then they also took processed wool. They also took several different machines, more modern machines for the spinning and weaving of wool, and showing the fine quality that they could get from it. And then the last part is they had wool coats that was made from Western Pennsylvania wool to show the high quality of it. The idea was that it was a twofold thing. So they wanted to increase their sales to Europe of this Western Pennsylvania wool. And so by doing this, they were kind of showing off. They were showing their high quality. And you're going to see following this that a lot of wool from Pennsylvania starts being used in European military uniforms because they saw the high quality of it, they saw the warmth of it, and the high lanolin level, I guess, in it, the increase in lanolin, so it was waterproof, as waterproof as you could get at the time. And so it actually worked. They ended up increasing sales to Europe following the 1851 exhibition, because of people seeing it while it was there. Even though it was a small part of the United States exhibit, it left somewhat of a lasting impression to people over there, even though it wasn't enough to make it in the newspapers. So I'm sure you've already figured out how that ties into the running of the wools. With the running of the wools, I know everybody's talking about the sheep races and how much fun that's going to be. But what is more important about this whole thing, and what Shana from from downtown Washington, the Business District Authority, and myself, we wanted to do is we wanted to highlight the impact that this industry, the wool industry, has had on Washington County, and we wanted to use it to build a community around it and show people the impact that it's had, and something that's a shared part of our history and heritage that is moving forward. That not only do you see it, in the past, but it's also still part of the present. Western Pennsylvania wool is still being used in British military uniforms today, and so not only show the impact of it past, present, but what we're building towards in the future. This event is all about community. It's all about getting community members together, getting our partners together to really to show what our history and heritage is, but also build towards the future. And that's such a huge part of it. And it's something that I think Shana has done an amazing job with, getting our community partners together and not making it not making it an event that's one organization. No, this is a community event. Yes, the Washington County Historical Society and the Business District Authority are driving it forward, pushing it forward, and are really making the event happen. But it's a community-driven event. We have people from all over the community that are volunteering and working together to pull this off and make it happen. And trying to use an example of Francis LeMoyne, he used his platform as a well-known abolitionist and a well-known doctor to promote the Western Pennsylvania economy built around the wool industry, and we want to do the same thing. We want to take a page from his book and do the same thing, not just do it for us, but do it for the community. And that's a huge part of this. It's a really, really big part of it. And so that is how this document from the LeMoyne Collection, the 1851 exhibition and Running of the Wolves all go together, because Francis LeMoyne and the impact that was made by him helping to introduce merino sheep to Western Pennsylvania, by him convincing Pennsylvania to show at the exhibition the wool industry, the sheep industry, that made an impact on the community and built it up. And even though wool was a big thing here, it pushed it further forward to the point where after the Civil War, some of the finest quality wool in the world is coming from Washington County. And so we want to tell that story. And we just did. And we're showing how it's tied in the Running of the Wolves. And if you come to Running of the Wolves, yes, you're going to get to see sheep races. On May 6th, you're going to get to see sheep racing down Main Street. But you know what you're also going to see is you're going to see a whole festival around agriculture, around sheep, showing the impact that it's made on us. So thank you for joining me. I've rambled on too long. I wanted to keep this to 15 minutes. I think I'm at 17 minutes now, so I'm sorry. But thank you for joining me. And please join us next week on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We have special videos coming out for Running of the Wolves leading up to the Wolves. We're going to release all the sheep names and the heats. And then also on Thursday, this coming Thursday, episode 2 of Sheep and the City. Barbara comes back to town to see the nightlife of Washington. So I hope to see you guys on Thursday, and I hope to see you on May 6th at the Running of the Wolves. And I hope you have a wonderful night. We'll see you in 2 weeks for another episode of Laid Back History.
I'm Shana Brown, and I'm the Director of the Washington Business District Authority in downtown Washington.
I am Clay Kilgore. I'm the Executive Director of the Washington County Historical Society.
Farming industry has been such a huge part of our agriculture and the economy of downtown. So Clay just decided the one day that this was going to be an event, and he came up with this whole concept with Running of the Wolves. And obviously he's promoting the historical aspect of it. And if it helps our business district and if it helps the downtown in the meantime, it's just a perfect partnership. Well, that's really the linchpin of everything is the local farmers. That is our mission. That's our goal. We want to showcase everybody as much as possible, but then also, range resources. Whenever we were looking for sponsors and looking for presenting sponsors, it had to be some kind of symbiotic relationship. And with the close relationship that Range has with the farmers in this region, it made sense. Everybody that has a Range lease has just spoke volumes about Range. So it was a perfect partnership, and we couldn't be happier.